Welcome back to the Learn Yoga Challenge. You are on your final day, day 3. I so hope you have received some benefit from this program and really feel like you're learning yoga, really learning yoga. Today we are going to talk about seated poses. And I want to share with you, I'm also going to share with you some really nice things to do for shoulder tension, neck tension, spine issues, things you can do on a daily basis. So I want to leave you with a bunch of good stuff because I'm also going to be teaching you a ton. So I want to make sure that you feel really good at the end because I do know I'm going to be doing a little talking. So, seated poses. First of all, I definitely recommend getting something to sit upon, something firm. Yoga blankets are firm. Okay, they're army wool blankets, these cotton blankets, but make sure they're cotton and not polyester. Polyester, these Mexican colored blankets, these woven blankets, are beautiful. If they're 100% cotton, they're firmer than if they're polyester, but it gives you something firm to sit upon because we want to raise our hips up. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different poses and why it's important to raise your hips up. In the cross-legged position, you want to make sure your knees are below your hip points. And if they aren't below your hip points, and I'll just exaggerate it just to bring them up so you can really see it, what happens is it pulls on a deep, deep abdominal muscle we have called the psoas muscle. It's abdominal hip flexor, okay? And that muscle causes tension in the lower back, which you may not even be aware of. You might not even might think, I don't feel any tension in my lower back. Well, it's there. We just might not be aware because it's so deep. So we need to get our knees below our hip points. If we can't get the knees below the hip points, we need to bring the hips above the knees, okay? So having something to sit on for cross-legged is really important. And I'm going to talk about it in a couple of other poses today as well, so you can really get an idea of what I'm talking about. So if you have something to sit on, go ahead and have a seat. I fold it even higher. So I fold it to about here for my cross-legged position, especially for the first one we're going to do, which is called Sukhasana, or the pose of ease. And it is a cross-legged position. Keep in mind there are 4 or 5 yogic cross-legged positions, and they're just legs at a different angle at the hip joint, right? So you're here, you can be here, there's one that's here, there's one that's here, there's another one too. But do you see I'm at different angles here? In Sukhasana, you are bringing the other foot, opposite foot underneath your knee, and so your knees are going to be lifted a little bit as a result of the foot. It gives you a nice square bottom, which, base in which, I'll make that easier, in which to do some stretching, etc. So it gives you a really nice solid base. But it also puts your feet beneath your knees, so your knees can't drop down. Even if you have the flexibility to get them down to the floor, they won't go down to the floor because the feet are in the way. So you need to do something to lift the hips up to get those hip points above your knees as best you can. I mean, sometimes you have to sit really, really high, and you don't necessarily want to do that. So just get as high as you can so that you can relax a little bit more in the pose. Now, if this hurts, use a chair. Everything we're doing today, you can do in a chair, okay? Now, the second thing you want to think about when you're sitting is you want to be on top of your sit bones. Now, we talk about the sit bones, or some people call it sits bone, all the time in yoga. They are actually your ischial tuberosities, which are the bones at the very base of your pelvis. They're actually knobs at the very base of your pelvis. And you can feel them if you palpate, if you will, your tushy. You can feel the muscle or the bone really deep down, deeper in some of us than others, but you know where I'm going with that. We want to be on top of those. Now, this is going to help you begin to feel the position of your pelvis and become more aware of it, because all of us have a tendency to either tip forward in the pelvis or tip back. This is my common place to go. I just kind of hang out. I'm right here. I'm creating tension in the back and also, throwing off the alignment all the way up. But I got to tell you, a lot of people are here. So you might actually know right now, you're like, oh yeah, I always hang out here. Or no, you know what, I'm here. If you're not sure, you're going to figure it out, especially if you start doing the Complete Beginner Yoga series, because I'm telling you, we talk about it all the time. And you're going to feel it in a bevy of different poses. So this causes tension, this causes tension. What we want to do in yoga is begin to become more aware of our alignment, our true alignment. Because when our body is aligned, the skeleton is aligned, right? The bones are aligned so that your muscles can relax. Can you see if I'm here that I'm creating tension in my body? It's like the muscles have to hold the body from gravity, right? And the same here. Any upper back tension, anyone? Right? I know I'm not alone. But when you align, it's like the body can exhale because the bones are aligned and they can support each other. Okay? Doesn't mean it's going to happen super quickly because we have probably decades of sitting in that incorrect place. So there's a lot of muscular tension that we also need to overcome, as well as we need to strengthen some things. So just be patient. But the first place to start is the pelvis. If the pelvis is tipped forward or tipped back, it throws off the alignment all the way up. Okay? So if you're tipped forward and you're trying to align your shoulders, you can't. You have to start with that pelvis. So if you tip forward, you can feel yourself tip forward on the sit bones and then tip back, and you can feel yourself rock off the back of the sit bones to that squishy spot. You want to get right on top. And we'll play with that a little bit more with some exercises in the complete beginner yoga series, but this just gets you started. When you get into that neutral lower back spine, you're going to feel everything align all the way up, or at least start to. Like I said, we've got to begin to open the body and begin to feel things. Okay? Told you I was going to talk a lot, but the next thing I'm going to teach you is going to be really juicy and you're going to love it. So getting up on top of your sit bones, right? Feeling that. We're going to do big shoulder rolls. So taking the shoulders forward and really separating the shoulder blades. Think of moving from the shoulder blades and then squeezing them together and then taking them down and squeezing them together. Now I'm also rocking back and forth on the sit bones. So I'm undulating, if you will, through the spine. I'm arching and rounding to the spine. So I'm getting a little spinal movement too. Change direction. It's a really nice twofer. All the way around. Really big circles. One more. You're going to come up and you're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together and release and take a breath. Doesn't that feel good? So good and so easy. All right, taking the arms up and overhead. We want to be super careful with the shoulder joints, and this is something I talk about everywhere. I talk about the shoulder joints a lot because they are very gentle. Okay, it's a very shallow, bony articulation, a bony joint, which means only muscles really hold your arm bone on. So there's lots of ways for this to go astray. I have never met anybody in 30 years of yoga, thousands of students, who has never had a shoulder issue. And I'm talking like a clicking or an imbalance or pain or rotator cuff injury, like the whole gambit, right? There's a whole spectrum of issues. We want to create smooth movement through the shoulders. So what you're going to do is take your arms out to the side, and we're going to engage the rotator cuff muscles intentionally. The rotator cuff muscles are supposed to help the arm bone track well, if you will, through the range of motion. Okay, so arms out to the side. Externally rotate the whole arm so that you actually feel the shoulder open as well, like you're broadening across the collarbones, and you feel your shoulder blades move into your back. Then you're going to lengthen the arms, like literally someone is pulling on your arms. And you're going to hold both of those. You don't have to really squeeze. It's just, open and lengthen and bring those arms up and overhead. Now, always move within a pain-free range. So if at any time it started to hurt, then be below that discomfort. And make sure the arms are doing the same thing. So if you can get one arm all the way up and the other one's out to here, both arms should be out to here, okay? And you can even do it a couple of times. Externally rotate, lengthen. Sometimes it takes a little bit to really get how that works. Be patient. It will happen. And then from here, you're going to draw the belly in, lift the heart, arc into the upper back, and then twist to your right. So you're going to twist, bring your right hand behind you. Left hand comes outside of the right knee, and you're going to lift tall as you twist. And then come back through the center, and you're sweeping the arms overhead. So I'm externally rotating, lengthening as I bring the arms overhead, and go right over to the other side. Twist. Lift the heart, twist the spine. And then come back through the center, bring the arms up, and bring the palms together down the front of the body. All right, change the cross of the legs. Always want to keep ourselves balanced. Always doing the other side. And it's totally normal to feel really awkward about now. We all have a strong side, a weaker side, a side that has more tension, a side that's more open. What we're doing with yoga is working on creating more balance. But along the way, yoga usually helps us feel really imbalanced because you start to notice the things you weren't noticing before. Okay, so take a moment to get on top of those sit bones again. You can tip that pelvis forward, tip it back, and just see if you can find a point that feels a little bit more open, and totally okay if you don't. It will come, I promise you. Okay, from here we're going to stretch the neck. This is so divine. You're going to gently draw the belly in and lift tall. We're just trying to create stability in the torso. So when you move the head, you're only moving the head. You're not tipping the whole body. You're going to take your left ear down to your shoulder and reach out through your right arm. And just walk the fingertips away, but you're pulling that shoulder and arm out and down as you bring the ear over. And then slowly turn the head down, angle it down as if you're looking underneath your arm. So you're going to feel the stretch come more towards the back of the neck. And then come back up and release. And draw the belly in, lift tall. Keep nice and steady as you take your other ear down, reaching through the left arm. Again, you're walking that arm away. So you're creating like this separation between your ear and your shoulder. Just breathing into that tension. And slowly turn the head down. And then come back up. All right, arms out to the side. Externally rotate again, remember, from the shoulders. Lengthen the arms and hold that as you bring your arms overhead, moving in a pain-free range. Lift the heart, arc up. Now this time we're going to take a side bend. So bring your left hand down, reach up your right side, and take it over. Feel a nice stretch up the side body. So good. Come back up, sweep the left arm up, and then take the right hand down. Reach up that left side as you take it over. Feel that stretch. So good. And then come back up, sweep the right arm up, and palms come together again and come down the front of the body. All right, now let's give the knees a little bit of a break. Let them be straight for a while. You're going to take your legs apart. This pose is called Upavishta Konasana. And the spacing of the feet, it's not necessarily as wide as you can go, depending on how tight you are. Okay, you only want to go about as far as you do for standing poses. If you can go further, you want to bring those legs in a little bit. As you go further out, you're actually moving toward a different pose. So this is Upavishta Konasana. I'm actually a little wide. And again, you want to take a moment to see if you're on top of the sit bones. You could definitely be rolling back, and a tip, if you're rolling back, your toes are probably rolling back, and if your toes are rolling back, your hips are probably rolling back. So you want to get up on top of the sit bones. You probably aren't arcing forward unless you're very flexible, just because that gets you into the stretch here. I am a little bit creating tension, but just play with it just a little. Now, if you have, like you are here and there's nothing you can do about it, all you need to do is bend the knees a little bit. That'll alleviate some of the stretch so that you can really get into the pose and enjoy it. Okay, so getting up on top of the sit bones, you're going to just very slowly breathe, like tap into how you're feeling. And you're going to bring yourself forward. So just begin to fold right from the hip hinge. I want you to feel broad across the heart as you come forward. So you're bending from the hip hinge, not from the spine. So it's not rounding. The spine is nice and long as you come forward. And then come back up, and you're going to bring the soles of the feet together. This pose is called Baddha Konasana. This one we want to be really careful with the knees. Okay, so if you feel any torquing at the knees, any tension at the knees, bring your feet further out from the body. That will help alleviate that. Okay, and if it feels really good, you're going to tuck those feet in even tighter. Now, if your knees are super high, make sure you're on a blanket. You might even want to consider being on a couple of blankets. You don't need to get the hip points above the knees in this pose, so it's different than the other ones that we've done. But if you can, it's good. It does help. So you might want to get up a little bit higher on something. And again, we want to get on top of the sit bones. Not always easy to do. And then from here, we're going to fold forward. Again, from the hip joints. You're moving from here, not from the waist, not from the spine. Spine stays long. Super important for us to really honor all the neutral curves of the spine and maintain them. And if you come forward right from the hip hinge, you do. If you round, you'll begin to flatten things out that shouldn't be flat. And then come back up and bring the legs out. All right, we're going to do one more pose today. So I'm going to show it to you from the side, give you a little side view of this. This pose is called Dandasana, and it is the centered seated pose like Tadasana. Remember how we kept coming back to Tadasana when we were doing our standing poses, that mountain pose? Well, this is Dandasana or staff pose, and this is that centered place we come back to just to kind of recenter, regroup, feel how we're doing. And it's not an easy pose. I'll just say it's not easy. The reason it's not easy is because to get on top of the sit bones in this pose, to not be here, it takes both flexibility and core strength. And most of us are missing one of those, if not both. And if you're here, you're straining your back, your lower back in particular, and your neck. We want to get to here. So there's a couple things we can do to help with that. Okay, the first thing is for sure a lift underneath your hips. It's not necessary in this pose if you're flexible and strong and you can get on top of the sit bones. A lot of the really beautiful Instagram photos out there have people in this beautiful pose because they are strong and they are flexible. But it definitely sends a false message that you don't need a lift in this pose. But for the average yoga practitioner, we need to have a lift. I need to have a lift, definitely. Now, this is why. If I don't have a lift, I have to get to 90 degrees, okay? I know it kind of looks like I'm doing it, but I can feel in my body that I'm not. I'm super warmed up right now, so I might be getting deeper than I normally would. But I can feel gripping in my thighs, gripping in my belly. It's like I'm working really hard just to get to here. If I add a lift, I only have to get to about 110 degrees, right? Like I'm opening the angle at the hips so the hamstrings don't have to work quite so hard. If you still feel like you're struggling with this kind of lift underneath you, your next step is just to bend the knees a little bit to make sure you're up on top of the sit bones. I definitely don't want you here. This is just going to cause damage to the body over time. And since you've probably hung out here during your day-to-day life, you've already got a little something going on back there. We just want to make sure we keep ourselves aligned in yoga because you're going to get more benefit out of the pose. Your energy is going to have more benefit. There's so many reasons to have better alignment in the pose, not even to mention not injuring the body. Okay, so getting up nice and tall and just finding that place and see if you can feel it. And if you can straighten your legs, awesome. If not, totally okay to have that slight bend. Now, one other thing I want to mention is you want to really extend right out through the soles of the feet so the legs are strong. They don't flop, they don't hang out, because I don't know if you noticed, as soon as I did that, I flopped my torso too. This is about being engaged. You're not gripping, you're not tightening, you are just engaged. It's like you're reaching through those legs. Again, something we talk about a lot more in the Complete Beginner Yoga series, but just start to play with it and feel that as it lifts your heart. You feel that lift in your heart. All right. Thanks for joining me. I so enjoyed sharing this entire series for you. I so hope you've also enjoyed the bonus video that I have for you. And I look forward to taking you more deeply in the Complete Beginner Yoga Series 2.0. Have a marvelous, marvelous yogic experience. It is a journey like no other. Namaste.